right, welcome everyone to another episode of Bayyinah and Friends. Today is Thursday, October 15th, 2020, the year of clear vision. So I want to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. We have another great webinar that's going to be happening. We have a very special guest that we're going to get to know a lot about and learn a lot about. And I believe our host is in the building. So Professor Bayyinah Bello, are you here?
Here I am.
All right, there she is. Oh, I should have put my glasses on today too.
That's right. You did. You did see the year. You did say the year of clear vision. So I have to make sure I do wear my glasses.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Good to see you, Professor. How are you today?
Very well, thank you very much. And I assume you are quite well because I see you with your bookman hat on.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, and I see quite a few faces. That's just, you're not the only one wearing a hat today. I see some other general with his hat on too, and his commanding officer on his lap. Hi.
If you could bring your camera down just a little bit so that we can see. There you go. Very nice. All right, take it away. I believe our guest is here.
I don't see her yet, or am I not recognizing her? Oh, yeah, here she is. Okay. Very good. Welcome everyone to Bayyinah and Friends. And today's session will be, in Bayyinah and Friends, just like in Fondation Félicité, we have 3 priorities: education, justice, and health. Those are our 3 priorities. So today we'll be having an educator. So, education will be what we'll be really talking about, the essence of what we'll be getting into. But as you know, before we do anything, health is always present. We have to be in good health in order for us to carry out our mission. Therefore, we will not stop reminding you the importance of breathing, the importance of caring for our breath, the importance of consciously breathing. And we're going to start, as we usually do, with 7 deep breaths together. As we breathe, we're in contact with the entire cosmos. As we breathe, information coming from all the planets, the sun, everywhere, can come to us and we can send our information to them. So let us take the time, sit up straight, both feet solidly on the floor, hands on our knees, and let us do this exercise together. Breathe in, hold, breathe out, relax. Breathe in, hold. Breathe out, relax. Breathe in, hold. Breathe out, relax. Breathe in, hold. Breathe out, out, relax. Remember, take in through the nostrils, let out through the mouth. Breathe in, relax. Sorry, hold. We'll start again, this one. Breathe in, hold. Breathe out, relax. Breathe in, hold. Breathe out, relax. Breathe in, hold. Breathe out, relax. Thank you very much. As we know, as we've said it numerous times, it's an excellent thing for us to take the time to consciously breathe. As we do this on a daily basis, twice a day, 3 times a day, before putting on mask, after taking off mask. The mask is not the best thing for us. It makes us breathe what nature has programmed for us to expel. So, but we use it, but we must take care of ourselves. We advise that everyone do put some eucalyptus oil on the mask. Eucalyptus oil has the potential for clearing out the lungs, cleaning out the lungs. So do use your eucalyptus oil. Do take deep breathing prior to putting it on, and take deep breathing after taking it off to protect ourselves from, we're gonna start hearing a lot of people having lungs problems. Wearing this stuff hours on end is not the best thing you could do for yourself. So let us be mindful. All right, we've taken care of a little health. And in our health, I hope you notice, the justice is there too. The fact that we breathe in and out, we are doing justice to ourselves and to the cosmos. We take in and we share with the entire cosmos. And when we do it consciously, knowingly, we also increase our ability to have control over what happens in our own lives. So, without further ado, let us go on to our educational area. And there, welcome to everyone once more. Thank you for being part of Bayyinah and Friends. Thank you for participating, for collaborating, for supporting. Thank you very, very much. Today we'll have the opportunity to meet Dr. Alecia Blackwood, who's an educator. We'll have a lot of things that we're going to discuss with her. But before we do this, we're going to go through freedom. Remember our objective. Our fundamental, essential objective across the planet, if we are an aware Black person, an aware descendant of Africa, we know that we must fight for freedom. And in order to fight for freedom, we must know what freedom is. And we go back for that. We go to our ancestor who wrote a text nearly 5,000 years ago to help us think about it. You see, he did not declare what freedom is like people usually do around here. He thought, he invited us to think because he questioned. He says, freedom? So he said, have you thought about it? Do you have an idea what freedom is for you? Have you a conception of freedom? So this is what to me is so vital about this text that I've been reading for the past 30 years and still don't know it yet. I'm still every day, every time learning more. about understanding what freedom is all about. So Dr. Alecia and I will be sharing, and I will start. I'll read the title and the first paragraph, and then she will pick up, and then we'll each take a paragraph. So, freedom. Our first mistake was that we thought of freedom as a place rather than the continuation of a struggle. Dr. Blackwood, the next paragraph, which is very short.
Tyranny never sleeps.
Absolutely. Our second mistake was that we thought of freedom as a goal rather than a launching pad from which to reach our goals.
Without purpose, freedom hardly matters.
Our third mistake was that we thought that freedom would make us free. That, however, is license, not freedom at all.
Freedom is being shackled to identity, purpose, and direction, and being in constant pursuit.
All right, thank you very much. So now, what do you think? Dr. Alecia Blackwood, excuse me, please to share with us what you capture, what you get out of this poem.
So when I think about this, I think the line that speaks to me the most is that freedom is a struggle. Knowing that we have to be in constant pursuit of freedom, and in order for us to be able to be free, when it speaks about that we're being shackled to identity, it's saying a lot. Shackled to identity, purpose, and direction. And this is the part where in thinking deeply about this is the part where I realized that we have to really ask ourselves questions. What is identity? What does it mean to be shackled to identity? What is our purpose? So freedom is being shackled to identity, purpose, and direction. And so in unpacking that, we have to think about identity. How do we know our identity? How do we teach children about positive identity? How do we teach about purpose and give them a sense of direction?
Absolutely. Excellent and powerful questions that when we claim to be teachers, we claim to be educators, those are vital questions that we must answer for ourselves. We must answer in our deepest intimacy. We must be able to answer those questions. Not for our people, but we have to be able to answer it for ourselves. That's where it really matters. No? Why, Bayyinah? What is identity to you? Bayyinah, what is being shackled to your identity? When are you loosened from your identity? When are you going away from identity, from your identity? Is everything you do your identity, or are you carrying all kinds of identities put out there? Or are you simply a reflex of imposed identities? We must ask ourselves all these questions. Where do we stand? Why do we say this way? Why do we see it that way? Until we have answered those questions for ourselves, then we are not on the path that we think we may be. And the most important thing that this last paragraph tells us, being in constant pursuit. So Do I say, well, 10 years ago I read the poem and I already decided, here's what identity is, here's what purpose is, here's what direction is, and I'm good. That was 10 years ago, Bayyinah. What you doing today? That Bayyinah that perceived identity, purpose, and direction in that way, she's no longer there. What are you today as a 72-year-old woman with 10 more years of experience, 12 more years of experience from 10 years ago? How do you view it? Are you still in line with your identity? Those are the questions we have to ask ourselves. And those are the most important questions for us are not those questions we ask others. The most important questions are the questions we ask ourselves and the answers that we give to ourselves. That is what is most important. Every time we say, the Quran said, the Bible said, that don't tell me who you are. I have no clue who I'm talking to. You got to answer for yourself how you view it, what you view it, in what direction you're going. Is there something else, Dr. Blackwood, that you want to enrich?
No, I am in agreement with that understanding for yourself. So as an educator, I had to get to that point at a place in my journey to just asking those questions. And so understanding yourself, it's really key. And it got me to a point where I designed a Ubuntu teaching framework, and which is the first thing within the Ubuntu teaching framework is to understand self. And so it's a constant.
We're going to get into that.
Yes.
Okay. But for now, we really want everyone to understand. Read this poem, reread it, question it, answer your own questions. Don't say you'll wait for Thursday and ask. Answer the question.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you ask, it will be a plus, whatever will be given to you. But you must trust yourself. Ask the question and trust yourself to give answers to all the questions that you ask. And know that your questions and your answers are the best for yourself. We must have this as a premise, okay? The best is right inside of ourselves. If we say that we are a divine people, then whatever comes from within is divine. And if it is, how can you doubt it? How can you think somebody else has a better answer than you when it comes to your universe? Okay? So it's vital that we teach ourselves to question what we do, question what we say, question our choices, and then to give the proper answers, the right answers to ourselves. It is very, very important. Thank you, everyone, for this segment where we looked at our freedom, our poem that we continue. And I hope you will continue for as long as you live. So no one can offer you kakapulpu be, chicken doo-doo for butter. Okay? If you can question yourself, if you can trust yourself to give yourself answers, that means also you'll be able to say to yourself, well, you know what, Bayyinah? That answer you gave 3 years ago, that didn't mean nothing. But at the time, it sounded like the best thing in the world. But as you grow, you can correct yourself also. So you must not be afraid of that. With people, yes, we make experiences, we make errors, we make faults, but we don't lie to ourselves. We're not gonna pretend whatever we said was good. It sounded good yesterday, but today it looked like nothing at all. If we can analyze it, we will see that, okay? So let us move on to our next step, which is, let me go ahead and do my duty for Fondation Félicité before we get involved with, I feel that what Dr. Blackwood is gonna give us, we might forget. So let's go right ahead and do our duty here. So the way to keep in touch with Fondation Félicité, as you know, Bayyinah and Friends is really an activity of Fondation Félicité brought by Thoroughbrook Bread, who created it for us. And so the purpose, the vital purpose in my life is to build Fondation Félicité. So whatever I do, Fondation Félicité is part of it. It's a vital part of it. So to stay in touch with Fondation Félicité on Facebook, the name is right there, Fondation Marie-Claire Heureuse Félicité Bonheur Dessalines. And if you think this is a long name, it means you're thinking of yourself very little, because that's no name at all. In our traditions, 12 first names was nothing. So 4 or 5, that's, doesn't really matter. So there is Twitter, I hear. There is Fondation Félicité on Instagram. Official Bayyinah Bello, there's an entire team working hard, and soon we will be bringing it out. I hope next time I talk, I won't be saying soon, but we'll have a date. If you want to keep in touch with us here in Haiti, it's 509-2940-0889. This is our WhatsApp number. And if you want to check out what we're doing, is on the website, www.fondationfelicite.com. And to participate, to contribute, to support our work, as you can donate via pourfondationfelicite@gmail.com. Those are the various ways that you can get in touch with us. We have, so that's for the contact, and now we can get back to our guest and really get into all that we see that she has. She has come here well prepared. We're gonna try to grab it all, because all of us as teachers, as mothers, as fathers, as uncles, we are all educators, and we all need to develop the tools to help our children become the very best. So let us go to the talk with our guest. Am I lost here again? Okay. Do I have the control, or you do?
No, I can control it. Akwaba, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on this platform. It's truly an honor to be here. And so I do give honor to my ancestors, all those warrior scholars, ancestors that have been guiding me in providing the messages that they have left for us to be able to read. And the poem on freedom, I've been reading it several times. Once I came across it in the Saba book, and I've been like, let it feed me like medicine. So that's where my journey towards education started to transform. So I must give honor to, all my ancestors that have, paved the way in terms of education. And for me to be at a place where I said, you know what? Yes. What do Alecia say? What does Abba say? What can you contribute to the work? And so I also give honor to my elders and my mentors and Professor Bayyinah Bello. You have been a book mentor, a video archive mentor that I've observed and listened to and went within to figure out, what do I say? I see I have my mentor in the house, Mama Olabisi. I want to say, give thanks to our esteemed elder, that has been there to say, yes, you can do this, go forth and do the work. And so as I do ask permission from my elders to share what I'm here that from within that I will share with you today. So do I have the permission, my elders?
Absolutely.
Thank you, thank you. So I'm
And
going to,
excuse me, I must say, it was so evident that this was your mentor from the second that we saw her on the screen. The queen was just there. It was evident written everywhere.
okay,
Congratulations to both of you.
thank you, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have some visuals that will guide the conversations today. All right, so my goal here today is really to focus on cultural transmission. So when we talk about understanding who we are as educators, and when I say educators, that is whether you are sitting by the riverside and you are talking to the children, or whether you're under a tree and the children gather around you, or you are at the barbershop and you are sharing your information, or whether you stand in front of a formal classroom, you are an educator. And parents, uncles, aunt, we have a duty to provide education for our children, and to make sure that we are providing proper socialization for our children. And what does that mean for an African child? So that's my goal, to engage in the conversation with this. How do we now go about transferring culture, making sure that we are intentional about transferring all the cultural elements. A lot of times our cultural elements, sometimes they are implicit, and it's sometimes we need to be very intentional and make sure that we're explicitly teaching those cultural elements or values or beliefs, whatever your cultural foundation is, to make sure that we are intentional about passing it on to the next generation. And so what brought me to this work is that I started out in education, and in public school education, and trying to figure my way out. And many a times I started to cry because I feel, okay, I'm not feeling myself in this process. I feel like quitting on this journey of education. And so I started within a couple of years later to just be intentional about studying who am I, understanding myself. And I think that sparked when an elder who studied in South Africa came to my classroom one day and said, "You teach in the spirit of Ubuntu." Ubuntu, what? Ubuntu. I had absolutely no clue what he was saying. He said nothing else. He left a note, and you teach in the spirit of Ubuntu. And so I started questioning myself. What is this Ubuntu? It was actually the first time I heard the word. And so I actually started looking at everything that I see with Ubuntu, and I was still not getting it. I came across a lot of different writers, and I'm like, okay, I'm still not getting it. And so I remember one day journeying from New York, and I just said, you know what, let me go within myself and trying to figure out what are the things that I was doing in the classroom to say that I teach in the spirit of Ubuntu. And that's where I started unpacking the things that I was doing naturally to be able to create a harmonious environment, a safe space for children, a place where children feeling proud of themselves and knowing who they are, a sense of connection, a sense of community, where I had an entire store in the classroom where the children are doing it's almost like a marketplace, buying and selling things in the classroom, really to teach them in math. And this was in public school. And so I was doing that and making sure that I see the sense where the students are so calm. And I had professors who would come to my classroom and said that you have the Zen classroom, because the children were collaborating with each other. There was a sense of connection. And so I wanted to further understand that. And so I started to doing research. I did a self-study. And so that's what furthered me onto this journey of understanding self. Understanding self, I realized that was key as an African. Who am I as an African? You know, are you an African? I was asking myself all of these questions and answering these things for myself before I actually connect to other resources outside of me to really help me to put this in perspective, or giving me additional language to it. And so when I started going into self, I came across Mahat, and I'm like, wow, I like the 7 principles of Mahat. And I would use this to teach. Back then I would mask it as character development. And so I teach the students about truth, about justice, propriety, reciprocity, balance, order, harmony. So every day I would go through and have what I refer to is in a morning meeting, you know, what does it mean to be truthful? We'll do activities around being, understanding truth. What does that look like? What does that sound like? What are some of the things that you do to demonstrate that you are being truthful? So at this point, I became intentional about teaching the students about justice, having conversation, and taking the opportunity to be the learner, and listening to the children. So a lot of times I tell the children that the person that is speaking at that moment is the teacher. That is the teacher. So we are all going to listen to the teacher. And we were intentional about going through each of this. I expanded it by adding Adinkra symbols to it, getting them to write about it, to tell me about it. And then I realized you're teaching them African values. And so I continue to expand my thought process with that, and bouncing ideas off my mentor, like Mama Olabisi I mentioned, and she would give me that guidance and I would go deeper into it, and just making sure that I was getting to a point where I'm developing a structure. And I continue to develop myself. So every stage of it, I still had to continue to develop myself, because I am learning as the children are learning. So it was a two-way process. What does it mean to have
Fabulous.
Yes. So this is what brought me onto the journey of making sure that I am intentional. And then we get to the Nguzo Saba. And I'm gonna tell you a little story about the Nguzo Saba. So when I was a young student at City College in New York, I remember my elder, now an ancestor, Baba John Watusi, said to me one Tuesday afternoon, come to the African Portrait Theater. I'm going to teach you about Kwanzaa. That was in the early 90s. I did not know anything about Kwanzaa because I did not learn about that in school. And so he gave me a whole history about the Kwanzaa, the start of Kwanzaa, Brother Watusi was a part of the US organization. He worked closely with Dr. Karenga, and he said, you are going to carry on the legacy of Kwanzaa. And he was very intentional of breaking down to me the historical aspect of it, why they select the days that they select. And so I was, just sipping up that information. And I went on the journey. As I left his office so excited about Kwanzaa. I started telling people about it, and they started laughing at me. Oh, you're in that Black Christmas stuff. You're in that Black Christmas. And I'm like, but there was something about it that grabbed my attention. And so I embraced the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, more so than even the symbols of Kwanzaa. This is where I started to think through the lens as an educator and explaining it to myself. And a part of explaining it to yourself is also asking questions too, and engage in reasoning about the Nguzo Saba. And so I engage in a reasoning with one of our teachers at African Culture School, Baba Asafo Wiedemeyer, and we were talking about the Nguzo Saba because this is something that we used to teach African values in African Culture School. And so the way that we break it down is in terms of the community values and the personal values. So when we look at the Nguzo Saba and the community values, Umoja, Kujijakalia, Ujima, Ujama, these speak to us as a community values, the things that we are doing to strengthen our community, the things that we are intentional about. How do you go about creating unity within your community? And I would have the conversation with the children about it. Draw a picture of unity in your community. How would you demonstrate unity when you're in the classroom, or you're in a school culture, or you're in your family? What does it look like? What does it sound like? And so as we reason about this, we really wanted to move away from just the theory and get to the practical application. So when we talk about having Kwanzaa, it's not just at the end of the year. It's making sure that we are applying the principles every day, 7 days of the week. We can go forth and incorporate that in our homes with our children. And so we spend time in African Culture School to make sure that we are teaching the children about the African values, the community values, your personal values. So when we look at the personal values such as Nia, Kuhumba, and Imani, when we strengthen ourselves, we are better able to work within our community. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You have to start with the self. Once you strengthen yourself, you are now able to be to work effectively within your community, whether it's your family or your school community or your nation. You have to be able to start with self.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And the larger, actually, another way of looking at it is that community or the larger self, family or the larger self, nation or the much larger self, universe or the greatest and greatest self of all, cosmos, etc., etc. So we have to, in fact, when we're talking about we are one, we have to understand if I'm a weak one, then I will teach and nourish and produce lots of weak ones around me. And as a weak person, I will be complaining about the others and not seeing I'm doing it. But if I'm a strong one, then I will nourish and help other strong ones too, and I will appreciate others. And that's That's why, yes, it's so beautiful the way you put it, sister. Personal values are key. A person with no purpose belongs to no community.
Yes.
No community. No creativity. You cannot solve any problem. You can complain about it. Oh boy, you see how you see how things are down the street, sis? Boy, oh my goodness, these people are terrible. That's all you can do. But if you have creativity, you look at a problem and you say, well, if we do this way, that way, what do you think? The conversation is totally different. Okay? So we have to assume our duties as individuals, and that's how naturally we will build the community, the strong community, or our greatest self. If my community, some of us talk about, black people, blah, blah, black people. Yeah, who are you, purple people? Okay, that's us. That's our greatest self. So let's assume it. Sorry, please continue.
Yes, no, yes, this is beautiful. Yes, understanding the self, unifying all the selves to make sure that we can go out and do our part in the community. So making sure that we are intentional about it. And so when we talk about education and we're educating children, and it's not enough to just say at the end of the year, we're going to do Kwanzaa. No, this needs to be done 365 days of the year, making sure that we are intentional about it. And explicitly, this is where we get to the point where we're explicitly teaching the students so that they can, our children, so that they can carry on this information. Sometimes we just leave it up by chance to be able to get it. A lot of things that my grandmother was a masterful medicinal woman. I learned a lot of things by just watching her and seeing the things, or sometimes she will say things. But I could have learned a lot more if that I was keeping a scrapbook with all the herbs and writing it down and be intentional. So when we talk about education and my role as an educator, I want to make sure that we are systematic about our approaches in how we go about socializing the African child. So when we talk about it, it's all about a socialization process. How do we go about doing it? Do we have a legacy statement for our family? Do you have a mission and vision statement for a family? Are your children able to articulate that? So we have to step back and start thinking about the education of our children in an organized manner, and not just leave it up to chance or leave it up to somebody that is homeschooling, or if you're in charter school, public school, whatever system of education that you participate in. As the parent, we are the first educators. So we have to make sure that we have a curriculum, a GPS or guidepost, whatever you want to call it, a blueprint for our children and our families to be able to move forward.
As I listen to Dr. Blackwood, to Sister Alecia, I see Toya. Toya is the woman who raised Jean-Jacques Dessalines. This is a woman who decided, to me, this is the greatest teacher in the world. This woman was a military woman in Dahomey, captured into the Euro-Christian slavery system, sold in Saint-Domingue. She ran away from that plantation with the intention to mount an army. Didn't find the right people. Met a woman who also had run away from the plantation and was about to deliver a baby. So she stopped to help this woman. But her intent was, at this point, since she could not mount the army, she was going to take herself off the planet. So Toya, or Akbaraya Toya, stayed with the woman. The woman delivered her child, and a few hours or days later, she felt death invading her body. So she took her child and gave it to Tantoya and said, please raise my child. Make sure he knows freedom. She hesitated a while and then in the end said yes. The mother died. She buried the mom. And now here she is. She was on her way to take herself off the planet. And she has an engagement. She has given her word. She's going to raise this child. How to do this? And she decided ultimately she needs to go back to the plantation that she had run away from. If she is to train this child so the child can crush slavery, then she has to suffer slavery with the child. And the child has to know the whole system well so the child could destroy the system. And she's gonna raise this child. From day one, she says around 4 or 5 years old, she started training him militarily, spiritually, teach him history of Africa, teaching about the great kings, etc., etc. And this child, we know him today as Jean-Jacques Dessalines, the liberator and founder of our country. Of course, people who write about him usually talk about when he's 37 or, when he's a general, as if he was born a general. But we did the research and found all the part of his life that they don't want us to know. And that great woman, that fabulous teacher who taught him from day one, freedom is the way, that he's on this planet to bring freedom, and trained him about everything. So to me, the greatest teacher in the world, because if you can go into that system, that ferocious Euro-Christian slavery system, and educate a child into a liberator, man, oh man, that's who I study. That's my model. When I look at her, I try to become a good teacher.
Ashe. And so as I think about that story, it also, I think about liberation education, and to say that we want to create liberation education for our children. Are we willing to sacrifice? Mm-hmm. What are we willing to do to make sure that we are creating an education, a socialization process for our children to make sure that they understand themselves spiritually, militarily, physically? What are we going to do? And so I'm here in a community, and I have to share this story of my community in Orlando. A collective of us started the African Culture School. We were not all educators. We are parents, and one of our directors said, if you have a skill, you can come and teach it. If you are a barber, be the best barber. If you cook, be the best cooker. If you are a farmer, come in and share with our children. And we started African Culture School in the park. We gathered the children on Saturdays in the park to bring forth the different ones in our community that said, you know what, you have a skill. I want for this week, our lessons are going to be centered around this. So we can sit back and complain and say, you know what, the school system is broken, what everybody else is doing, but what are you doing? What are you doing to make your community a better place? How are you connecting with the others in your community? But before you can connect with others, you got to start with yourself to be able to participate in the collective. Yep. And so that's how we went forth in providing the education model that we want to say 15 years later, we now put it on paper and have a structure, have a framework for it. But we didn't start out with a beautiful curriculum and all of that. We were building it. We didn't sit back and say, oh, we don't have this. okay, can you teach this? You know a language? And at some point, it's whatever second language they were teaching that. If you are able to speak Spanish, you're going to teach the children Spanish. If you're able to teach Swahili, you're going to teach. So we go through different subject areas. Someone was versed in Marcus Garvey. We had a class on Marcus Garvey. You understand me? We had a class in Toussaint Louverture. We are teaching the students about it and to make sure the students understand their ancestors that have made sacrifice for them to be here. Now we have a class called African Ancestor, and we explicitly teach them about an ancestor every semester and unpack that with the children. And we're not teaching just about dates and all of that. We're making sure they understand, who was this person? And how can you activate your purpose, your identity, having a sense of direction? We have to be intentional about the process of how we are educating our children. And it requires commitment. We cannot sit back and give lip service to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, there is a sentence in your bio I want us to go over. Whoops. I think you have the screen.
I'm going to stop it. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. All right. And now I think this is what Fonz is doing this screen here. How do I, okay, exit full screen. All right. I'm getting there. And okay, here is our sentence. Please. Okay. Dr. Blackwood is the Executive Director of African Culture School in Orlando, Florida. African Culture School is a nonprofit organization that provides cultural education for students in the community. The school also has a rite of passage called the Sankofa Youth Initiative Program that takes students to study abroad in Ethiopia and Ghana. Please expand on this for us.
Okay. So African Culture School, we are a small nonprofit Pan-Africanist organization that we started in 2006. Just really wanted to provide cultural education, and we like to say true education for our children. The children in our community, that they might be homeschool, public school, charter school, we design a supplementary education program that the children come to us on Saturdays for 2 hours. And we gather our community members that to be able to teach the children in the community. We have our brothers in the community. Sometimes they're teaching them about farming, or we're teaching African values, or we're teaching a foreign language. But our goal was to make sure that we are intentional about transferring the culture, to make sure that the students understand who they are as an African child growing up in America. And so we expanded the program in 2015 after watching the Back to Our Roots program with Habesha taking children to study abroad in Ghana. And as a team, we decided we are going to do that. And we had no idea, but guess what? We reached out to the organization, and we were able to partner with them to start taking students to study abroad in Ghana first. So the rites of passage, the Sankofa Youth Initiative, it's a rites of passage program where we take the students through a 10-month curriculum to learn about their history more in depth, their culture of the place that they're going to travel to, and teach them communication skills and entrepreneurship skills. And the students prepare to go on that journey. So it's not just, okay, you're going to complete an application process, write an essay, and then a couple of months later, we're going to take you. No, we take them through, and it's a requirement that they have to go through the 10-month curriculum in preparing them for that journey. And they learn about their African culture and values and the history, and we give the students an opportunity to what we call a Sankofa Party. And a Sankofa Party is, the word Sankofa comes from the Akan culture, mean go back to your past and learn, go back and fetch, go back and learn. And so for a lot of our children in the community going on the Sankofa journey, a journey through self-discovery, what we do with them is called a Sankofa Party, where the children have to talk to the community about their journey, about what they're going to Africa to do. And when they return from the trip, we do what we call an Aquaba Party, where they now come back and they have to present to the community. So if they were interested in being a real estate agent or an architect or a farmer, while they're on the journey, they get an opportunity on the continent to interview someone that is there. And now they come back and they do a creative presentation to share with the community. So this rites of passage program, we're intentional about this journey of self-discovery. Who are you? And we give them the opportunity to explore and to be intentional about identifying their strengths and knowing who they are. So that's a little bit about the African Culture School and one of our programs, the Sankofa Youth Initiative.
Wonderful, thank you. I hope everyone who's listening understand what a rite of passage is. Rite of passage, traditionally on the continent, you had rite of passage at different stages of your life. There might be one at 7 for girls separately, for boys differently. There might be a second rite of passage at 14. It's like, actually, these are different rites that measure your humanity, how much of a human you are. What can you do? Can you survive? If you're in the area of, let's say, forest, then can you, if you're in the forest by yourself, how much can you survive? Are you trained for that? Or are you just going to panic and say, well, there's nobody here, blah, blah, blah. You know, if you're by the river or by the sea, whatever environment you live in, the rite of passage will have things to do with your environment and your ability to survive in whatever environment you live in, as well as your relationship to others, to people, okay? Are you prepared? You know, people are prepared for everything. Here we just grow up and then we say, oh yeah, I'm 18. I can do what I want to do. I'm 18. I have a checkbook. I have a credit card. But there was ever a conversation about what is the responsibility of handling money? What is debt? What is credit? Why do, no preparation whatsoever. Things are just dropped on your lap. And then they say, you mishandle it, but you were never prepared. In some of our traditions, even relationship, how do you become qualified to become a spouse or to become a husband? What are the necessary values, qualities that you must have to be a father? In, for example, in Hausa people, I lived among the Hausas for 3 or 4 years in Nigeria. After you get married, you go back to your parents' house because your mom has to now teach you how to become a wife. So it's 3 months after training from your mother, you will be sent back to your husband. But the day of the wedding, there's no such thing as going to a husband's house because you have to learn how to be a wife. And the same is done when you're expecting your first child. You must go back to your mom after the 3rd month and you deliver the first child at your mother's house while learning how to be a proper mother. And then you will go back to your husband's home or your home with your husband after your baby turned 3 months. So Rites of passages are moments that African tradition take to train people to properly assume new responsibilities, new duties. You're not just dropped into things. And that is absolutely, I congratulate, I give all my compliments to a school that take the time to integrate rite of passage for the children. So it helped the person to become better human beings. That's really the purpose of rite of passage. So thank you. I think, oh yes, we're nearly on 2 o'clock. And at 2, we open up so everyone can have a larger conversation. We go to our larger self. And we have a conversation, not just the two of us, but now all of us can participate in the conversation, in the building, in the growing, in teaching each other, and in learning from one another. So, Franz, I turn it on to you. And today we're really on time, 2 o'clock sharp.
2 o'clock sharp. Very good, Professor Bello.
I would say it as King Henry would say, it's 2 o'clock, 0 minute, and 0 second. That's how he would give you an appointment. He's not going to receive you at 2 o'clock and 1 minute. That's too late.
You have to be right on time.
Absolutely.
That's the spirit of King Henry.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Blackwood. I learned a lot. That was fantastic. That was very good. We have to have purpose in everything that we're doing, including the education of our children and the next generation. So I applaud you for everything that you're doing. And I would love to send my kids down to Orlando to spend some time with your program. But the community is, I'm sure they're happy to have you, and I compliment you on your work.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. So we reached the time for Q&A, question and answer with Dr. Blackwood and Professor Bello. So please, if you have a question for our guest, if you can hit the raise hand icon, hit the raise hand icon so that you can be put in the queue so that I can choose you to ask your question. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of questions today, especially for our guest. So go ahead and start filling in our queue with questions. Just raise your hand. I believe there's like 3 dots somewhere, and it should have a raise hand icon, and you'll be put in the queue. So let's go ahead and start doing that. And we can go to our first question. Our first question comes from Wajit Osset. Mel, go ahead, unmute yourself, ask a question, please.
Hey, how you doing, Franz? How's it going? Hello, my Bello. Hello, peace and blessings to everybody. Hello, Dr. Blackwood.
Hey,
your presentation was very well received, and I did learn a lot. I recently started learning about rites of passage, say about like just maybe about like a year and a half to 2 years ago. So to now know that rites of passages is, I feel like it's something that's very like loosely unspoken about in the Black community. It's, you know, that not really out in the forefront the way it should be. You know what I mean? So now that we're kind of centering back to that, it feels good because it's more structuralized. You know, it feels like life could be more like it just makes sense. So I wanted to know, is there any works, could you see like a whole full out academy kind of happening with more, say, centered around those values, around just raising around like all over the country? Or is that something in the works?
The part of the question you're asking if it's what is in the works. I'm not understanding that part.
Yes, like I'm sorry about that. Like is there, could you see, because I know that right now you're mainly teaching, say, from like a nonprofit organization, correct?
Mhm.
So could you see it growing into say a full out academy where it's like it would overtake, you know, the current system that we have right now as far as education goes and
Excuse me,
things
what
of
is
that
not
nature.
clear is, are you speaking of education or rite of passage?
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess the both of it tied into it. Yes. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the education, the African-centered education, it's, you know, I'm speaking from continental U.S. amongst African Black people. It's growing. A lot more families are now intentional about providing African-centered education, and schools are adopting curriculums that are African-centered. And so just individuals are coming together to make sure that that growth, that we are doing it, and we cannot just sit back and wait for somebody to do it. We just have to keep doing the work. We can't sit back and wait until it becomes popularized, you know, to making sure that our children are getting that proper socialization of the education, an African-centered education. And there's rites of passage. It looks different for Black people across, you know, continent or here in the diaspora. It looks different. And what do you want that rites of passage to look like for your family or within your community? So the way that we do rites of passage in African culture school, it might look different than someone else in Atlanta doing a rites of passage. But at the end of the day, we have to just step back and see, you know, what type of learners we want to develop. What are we preparing them for?
Okay. And I just have one more question. Say if you had a family who didn't have roots in Africa, say if they like a Caucasian family or an Indian family, but they wanted to center their lives around African, you know, sort of like a African system, would it exclusively be for African children? And also, do the children is there something
That's
where
five questions now, sister.
Hmm?
That's 5 questions you're going into. So
I'm sorry. There's a lot.
so finish the one and then let's go on.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
So the African Culture School is an African-centered for African children. And so if others are looking for it, we'll refer them to others, but we provide for African-centered education in our program.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your question, Mel. Your questions, Mel. All right, it's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you, Mel. All right, next question comes from Yumi. Yumi, go ahead and unmute yourself. Ask your question, please.
Okay. Hi, hello everyone.
Hey, how are you?
Good, and you? Okay. I mean, it's a question for both Dr. Blackwood. I mean, it's my first time listening to you, so it's good to see another mother that I could listen to, get more wisdom. And Dr. Bayyinah Bello, I already been watching your videos. My question is very specific. I would like to know, you has elders and women, what do you think is the biggest duty that has Black men that we have to for our Black women?
Well, if I may go first, I will go to the first constitution of Haiti, the Imperial Constitution of 1805, which says, to deserve the quality of being a citizen of Haiti, you must be a good son, a good father, a good spouse, and most of all, a great soldier. So if I go from there, I would say that family is the first good son, good husband, good spouse. So family is the number one thing that is requested of the Black man. But once you create anything, family, nation, country, whatever, you must be able to defend it. So the duties of a Black man, as far as I'm concerned, have to do what you have to do for your family, but you must be able to defend your own. And that's often where we fall short. Got to defend whatever you build, got to be able to defend it.
And I'm in agreement with that. I think also it's very important for my Black brothers to be able to govern themselves, to be able to first govern yourself so that you can vibrate at the highest level so that you can govern a family.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Yumi. Appreciate your question.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next question comes from Diana. Diana, go ahead, raise your hand. I'm sorry, unmute and ask a question, please.
Okay, my sorries, and I'm here. Hold on one second. First of all, this was amazing. Thank you so much for both of you. Mother Lion, you know that I always love seeing you. Especially as the plight for education and children. So I think I have a two-part, one a comment, another part is on behalf of, I'm always, but on the collaborative, I love hearing what you're saying because we have plans and we do that as well. And in the question of first, part of my question was, is this culture school, the school open in collaboration to bring it outside of Orlando or outside of Florida? Just like, because I'm sure France too would, in a Washington area or a Connecticut area, whatever, would they be open in collaborating? Because we do have ideas for doing the exact same thing. That's the first question. And the second part was kind of double back on France saying, I just wanted to say these conversations are always so amazing because at least for me, they give me affirmation in the movements that are going next. And for my child, it's so random because I told her this is our rite of passage. And then all of a sudden, everybody started speaking it. But it's just a funny story, but it's something of my own that I made from my family. When I was 16, I always wanted a belly button ring. It was like a crazy thing. And my mother wouldn't let me. So I put a fake one on. She went crazy. We have Haitian mom. She went nuts, surprised her. When I was 19, I did it on my own. And that's when she finally found out, like months later, I did it. My daughter herself is turning 16 and she was harassing me about, Mom, I want this or whatever. So at like 14, I told her, if you still remember, then we'll do it together. So she's turning 16, she remembered. And I told her, okay, so you know what, this is gonna be our rite of passage. I'm gonna tell you why. When I was your age, I wanted this. It didn't happen, but when I was about 18, actually, I got it done. I got pregnant with you at 21, so I didn't get to keep it long. For you to be the person to bring me back to want it again, that's going to be our connection. That's our rite of passage because you yourself are bringing back to something that I opened the door already in a sense. The joke of leg bot energy, but I opened the door and she's like, Mom, so you got to be with me because you know you got to open the door. But it was a joke, but that was our own rite of passage. But my question again, back to comment and question was, were you open to collaborating outside of Florida?
Yes, so we do collaborate with many different African-centered organizations, and we have we actually have an online component of our classes that we launched our online platform. So we have children, can come in from around the country or internationally in terms of the courses that we're offering.
We would just connect with you via website.
Yes, through the African culture, African with a K, culture with KULCHA.com. So that's the African culture.
Okay, I like the K because I have a company, I do ceramics, and our colors are RBG, and we did Ashe Creations. I did it with a K and a Z. But thank you, that was all I have. Thank you so much, this was amazing.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Diana. Okay, we have another question from Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald, go ahead and unmute yourself. Ask your question, please.
Yes. Good afternoon. This is me. So the question I'm actually thinking about right now is while I was watching this whole presentation, there's something I've been battling with something for like a very long time. I've been battling with finding the Africanness in Haitian culture, right? So I would like to know, where does the rite of passage occur in the Haitian culture? All because I just don't know. And I've been trying to find out for a long time. I just don't know, because even up to this day, even when I want to find that the Africanness in Haitian culture, I kind of like hide it, because that's something that my family members, like, when you get into it, they kind of distance themselves away from you. You know what I'm saying? So I just do it like very secretively. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so that's pretty much my question. Yes.
Okay, thank you for your question. Haitians are so African that they don't even see the Africanness in themselves. And we can bring the illusion can go so far. You will hear people say, well, we have absolutely nothing to do with Africa. Haitians have nothing. But anybody who knows Africa comes to Haiti and say, hey, I'm in Africa. Okay? But we don't have a consciousness about our Africanness.
Okay.
We, for example, we wrap ourselves in a towel in the morning when we go make coffee or going to the river to go bathe or whatever. We use a towel. But if you look at any African woman, she uses a panya that she covers her body and she goes about doing her business. You see exactly the same thing. If we look at how we set up the fire, how we put on food, or we do certain foods and whatnot, you find that Africa is all over. But most Haitians are unable to say that this is Africa. But any African who comes in, say, I'm home. That's the difference. Now, you also have the Africanness is in the language. Our tongue is structurally, it's Fangbe. Basically, it's Fangbe with all kind of European words, but it's a Fangbe structure. But most of us don't know that. People who study, who call themselves linguists, they will say, Africa is made of French and Spanish, and all the Asian language is made of French, Spanish, German. They'll put anything, but the African presence, they don't know. And we have more than 30% of the words are African words. So even in the vocabulary, you have a lot of African, you have a lot of Taino, Siboney, Tupi words in the language, but most of us are totally unaware of it and think all of it is French.
Even the drums, like a lot of times when you beat drums, that happens to me a lot of times. Like I'll be at home sometimes, I'll be at my mother's house sometimes, and then I'm watching like an African movie at my mother's house, right? And they playing drums, and my mother said that, oh, like closest thing in my head. I don't want to hear this.
Because it brings her too close to home. It's not their fault. It's a conditioning of, a lot of conditioning involved there.
Not a problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you, Fitzgerald. Appreciate your question. All right, let's see. I don't see any more hands in the waiting room. I did see a hand from African Culture School go up, but it's not up right now. So if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, we have someone now. Yumi. Go ahead, Yumi.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yes, Professor Bello. My question was regarding an interview I was watching of you last night. I didn't quite like get like the full like understanding, so I would like to get it from you now. In your opinion, what is the main difference between an empire and a republic?
Oh, okay. I will answer that question, but I want us to have the discipline of staying on the subject that we are debating for this day.
Okay.
And the subject we're debating is African-centered school, and our guest has brought so much on the table that we should all be questioning the elements that she has brought and give her more opportunity to expand on what she says. But I will respond. There are different types of government in any, around the world. You have different types of government. Republic, kingdom, empire, which often we mix up empire and imperialism, which is not at all the same thing. Imperialism is not a form of government. It's a form of domination, okay? But forms of government, you have republic. There are a lot of other things too, like Monaco is a principauté. It's, a prince is at the head of it. So they call it principauté and whatnot. But the main things are republics, kingdom, or an empire. The republic is just whatever the structure you give it is what it is, the republic. And it's supposed to be democratic. But that's, to me, that's just a joke. The republic can be as kingdomish as they want. It all depends on how long. For example, you take France, who the president is going to receive you in the Palace of Versailles. So it's a very Republican palace, I guess. That's not. It's something that was built by their king, by their empire, by their emperor, and it has all the luxury and stuff of the empire. But the key thing about an empire can hold every other form of governance. If we create an empire, let's say when Haiti was first created, we created an empire in 1804. So it was with the intent that tomorrow, when Jamaica becomes free, if Jamaica decides to create a kingdom, that kingdom can be part of the empire. If Cuba decides to be a republic, the republic can be part of the empire. Any form of government can be part of an empire. It's an idea that is pretty vast in the way, and that's why Haiti, on the letterhead of Dessalines, it says, Jacques, Emperor First of Haiti, Empire of Freedom. So as each country, each island would become free, they would be able to join under the umbrella of the empire and be together and be protected. That was the idea in our way of looking at empire. All right. So, but all the other forms can hold all the other forms of government. And this is what England did in very intelligent way. Most people say, oh yeah, no more empire in England. We have what they call it? The Commonwealth. All right. So they have kept their colonies now under a new label. And it's called the Commonwealth, which would mean that all of us will profit from the wealth, but it's not what's going on. They do, all the wealth goes to England and the others struggle. That's what it is. They're still like a colony existence. So we have to learn to don't be stuck on words. Words, people give it content. So when we look at things, we have to look at the facts. And that's why Haiti, in the beginning, the empire of Haiti did not hesitate. When Miranda was in trouble trying to free Ecuador, we sent troops, money, boats to help Miranda. When Bolivar was trying to free Venezuela, Haiti helped Bolivar. When the Greek were in famine, Haiti sent tons of coffee for the government to sell and feed its people. Because in our mind, we have a responsibility across the planet to help, which is very different from what the world is about today. I hope I brought some light for you, Yumi.
Yeah, yeah, that was good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Yumi. All right, thank you, everyone. The hands are piling up now. Okay, so next question comes from Cassandra Sherry. Cassandra, go ahead, unmute yourself, ask your question, please. Sandra, you there?
Yeah, but can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, hi everyone. It's my first time listening to all of you. So before I was doing modeling, so I never, take time to read any books because I said, okay, modeling, shooting, so we don't have time for those kind of things. So after my boyfriend passed away, I moved to USA and I started reading so many different books. So my question for all of you is how we can help young people, especially young people from my country, to value their culture. How can we do it?
By valuing your culture yourself.
But how if we don't even know about our culture?
So then the question is, how do I come to know my culture? You see, that too is something we have to be careful about. We are being conditioned to be so outward program and focus. You see, if I don't know something, how come my question is, how do I make other people know it? See what I'm saying? So if I don't know something, then my step number one is, how do I get to know it? That's step number one. Now, once I know it, I'll know exactly how to transmit. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but it's very difficult in 2020 to find someone who's gonna teach you what to know if you are not looking to know by yourself. I don't know if you understand me. It's very difficult, like for young people like me, to find other people, in Haiti especially, to teach me good things about my past. It's very difficult. All I always know is Christophe Colomb came in my country in 1492 and blah, blah, blah. That's it.
Right, we know. But that's why the question has to be, how do I come to know? That's the number one question. Okay. Once you start to learn to know, you will start meeting other people who know. And then you'll probably fall into a group that wants to know, that wants to do certain things. But the first step is not to say, how do I make them know when I myself don't know? Okay? So as you get on a journey to make yourself know, you will find ways, and you'll find many ways of helping others. It will come naturally, but start by wanting to know for you. That's the number. That's what Dr. Blackwood was saying.
Yes.
Am I transforming your name?
It is Blackwood.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Because sometimes I do have this thing where I have something else in my head and my mouth is, okay. So.
And Professor Bello is right. You're asking the question, you start with you. And that's why you're here today, because you started, asking those questions. And it's something that I did for myself as well in trying to understand African-centered culture. I grew up in Jamaica, and I didn't learn about, my African self. And just like Haiti, Jamaica, it looks like Africa. Spending a lot of time living and going in Africa, I realized, okay, it looks the same, but we didn't know about, the Africanness within our culture. And so you start with the self of asking yourself the questions. And that's what even led me to understand more about, my culture, to the point where I was able to create the Ubuntu Ubuntu framework that puts you on the journey for knowing yourself. And if I may, I have a diagram with the Ubuntu framework. I was just going to share that so the ones could see the Ubuntu framework. Why is it not moving? Okay. Okay. So this is the Ubuntu framework. We come back to the place where we say understanding self. Starting with yourself is key. When we talk about Ubuntu, it's from the Bantu languages in Southern Africa. And in trying to understand Ubuntu, which is not an English concept, it was a bit difficult. You know, you come across writers just saying it's I am because we are. But what does that mean? How do we unpack it for ourselves and for children? And so this is a framework that we think through as we are understanding ourselves and helping others as well. And so with the first part you said with the Ubuntu is to understand yourself. Then you're going to build relationships, building the relationship with others, building the relationships amongst your family and extend it out to your community. Unifying the children, unifying all yourselves. That piece is important too, that you have to make sure that you have unity within you before you started expanding out. And when you're working with a group, especially children, you have to explicitly teach them what is unity. How do we unify ourselves? How do we work together with each other? We also talk about nurturing the minds of the children. That we have to step back and be very intentional about how are we teaching about the mind, body, and spirit. What does that mean? What does it look like? What does it sound like? As we are trying to get to that place of the higher vibration and get into a place where you're godlike, and making sure that we are preparing them in that process of socialization and using the elements within your culture. You don't have to go outside. You go from within and use the elements of your culture to ground them. And always teaching from a position of love and care. Love and care. We cannot fake it with children. They see right through us. And no wonder a lot of times we see in schools here in America, our children, they react to the teachers in different ways because they could see your fakeness, they feel it. So we have to bring our authentic self and making sure that we are coming from a position of love and care, even when you discipline them. Even when you use that discipline as an opportunity for them to learn. When they do something wrong, your discipline should be proactive first, but you also have to use it as an opportunity to teach. So you're going to discipline them with love. Just like what Professor Bello do to us in these classes. She disciplined us with love. And in making sure that we start reflecting so that we can, think through what we're doing and saying so that we can correct that. And then the last part within the framework is making sure that we're using evidence to reevaluate growth and development. Questioning. When we talk about evaluate, we're questioning the things that we're doing, the things we did 10 years ago. We should be at a place where we are reflecting. Was that helping with my growth and my development? Is how I'm structuring for my family. Do I go back and reevaluate my legacy statement to make sure that I am doing the things for my children to be able to express our legacy statement? So that's the piece with this is in a snapshot of the Ubuntu framework. It's coming out in my book, but this is capturing just an essence of the idea and this paradigm in thinking about all areas of our life activities as we are providing that level of socialization for children and community.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Dr. Blackwood. Appreciate you sharing that. Thank you, Professor Bello. Thank you, Cassandra. And I guess I'll just add this. Like, I'm a firm believer in finding is reserved for those who search, right? So if you're searching for answers, then obviously you have to ask the right questions. And you will find the answers out there once you start searching, once you know what you're searching for. Right? Just like myself, I was in your same position not that long ago, maybe like 7, 8 years ago. I'm trying to figure out more about me, myself, my culture. And I just started asking questions, and I just went and on my computer, right? Started looking, YouTube, Google, all these different things. And it led me down a path of different books, different teachers, and it led me straight to Professor Bayyinah Bello. Right, and we were able to develop this great relationship that we've had, more like a mother-son relationship. But I've been able to learn so much, right? But it takes you down a path once you start asking questions that's going to get you closer and closer to your answers, right? It's a never-ending voyage, right? The search for knowledge. But as long as you're going in the right direction, then you'll be further along from where you are now. So keep searching. You're in the right place. Go back to our YouTube channel. You could go back and watch all of these different Bayyinah and Friends sessions. We've shared tons of books. We've had tons of teachers on here. Professor Jeffries, Professor Small, Edridge Dantigat. We've had so many different guests. And you'll be able to learn a lot from them as well. So thank you, Cassandra, for your question. All right, let's move on to next. We have Wajit. Wajit is back. Hello, Mel.
Yes, hi again. Yes, I do still have just one more question, maybe 1.5. But I wanted to know, as far as rites of passages go again, because it was going through my mind. Is there a point in life, especially for us as women, for both men and women, where, say, because I'm 29 years old, is there a time where rites of passage just ends, or is there like a cutoff time, or where it's like, okay, you've done your last rites of passage, now you start teaching? Is there a point? Is there a point like that?
No. Because as long as you're alive, you are growing. So there's always a rite of passage. For example, when you're going to take a position in government, you have rite of passage that you have to go through. When you're going to take a responsibility towards a large community, there are rites of passage that you need to go through. You see, the thing is that today, in the world that we're in, where everything goes, I could, go to school. I'm very bright, and I'm 20, and I have my PhD, so I could have whatever position wherever. Well, that's fine for this society, but looking at the shape that it's in, I don't think this works. Okay, so people can have big jobs, big titles, lots of diplomas, lots of money. But what about their humanity? What kind of humans are they?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There is no worry about building the person, building your soul, building your heart, learning to listen to your heart, learning to listen to yourself. Those things are not taught. And therefore, we have people who are supposed to be responsible for others, but that's why you can have situations where, like, everybody's talking about corruption, for example. It's not corruption the problem. It's the lack of knowledge of self.
Yes.
If I have enough knowledge of Bayyinah. And I understand, okay? There is this little Bayyinah sitting here, and there is all this Bayyinah there across from me. So if I am given something, let's say an amount of money to make a hospital so all of us can have good health, why would I want to take this money and blow it on watches or crowns or whatever? You see, it's the fact, the real problem is the fact of the lack of knowledge of self make you not understand your greater selves. And so you work against yourself. I have a very good example. We lived a few years back. We were doing, Fondation Félicité was doing a literacy program. And we would go to different people like doctors, lawyers, pediatrician and whatnot, and tell them if they would allow the person who works for them, give this person 1 hour. Let's say the person finished working at 4, allow them to finish at 3, but you pay them for the full day. And the person would give themselves 1 hour and they would learn how to read and write. Well, this particular pediatrician told me, you're gonna change the market. Now they're gonna ask for more money. If they know how to read and write, they're gonna blah, 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 blah. So the person was absolute. He was a pediatrician who doesn't want the person who's taking care of her children to know how to read and write. Okay. Couple years down the road, I meet this woman and she's all sad and crying. What's the problem? Well, her child was sick. She gave the medicine to this non-reading person of her child. And the wrong proportions, the wrong medicine, whatever, something went wrong and she lost her child. Somewhere in me, I felt, but you look for this. Because you couldn't see that everyone has the right to learn how to read and write, but in particular, this woman who's taking care of your child.
Wow.
Okay, so because she saw herself as such a separate, I'm the big doctor, the great doctor, blah, blah, blah. Now, you didn't see yourself one with your child. You didn't see yourself one with the person who takes care of your child. And therefore you harmed yourself while you thought you were harming someone else. So we have to understand that the whole African culture stems from we are one.
Ubuntu.
We are one. I do not exist unless all of you is there. So if I don't have that as a concept, as a person, and part of, the different initiation, the different rites of passages, they took care of making us being aware of this. If we look into Egypt, we would see that when you become Pharaoh, the first person you have to name in your government is a dwarf. Oh, a dwarf.
No.
Yeah. The first member of government is a dwarf. And this dwarf is the only member of government who can tell the Pharaoh anything. He has no rules, no nothing. Everybody else has to be careful. When the Pharaoh walks into a room, everybody has to go down on all fours, get on the floor, put your forehead on the floor to greet the Pharaoh and say, yeah, hail Pharaoh, the God of, the real representative of God, blah, 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 blah. And the dwarf stand up and say, remember, you're nothing but a man. If somebody stick you, you will bleed like a man. While everybody is giving to Pharaoh all the whatever, the dwarf is there to contradict all of this. That's his job. He'll never be a Pharaoh, but he has all the authority to tell the Pharaoh off on every level, otherwise to create balance. We are saying, yeah, Pharaoh, representative of Ra, blah, 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 blah. Somebody has the job to say, don't let it all blow into your head. Don't let your head blow up with all this. Come down to ground. You got job to do. You have this to realize for the people. You have this to it. That's it. So we create balance. So in the African structure, there is always the ma'at must always be present, balancing everything. The Emir of Kano in Nigeria, when you go to visit the Emir, you gotta go flat on the ground to greet the Emir till this day. But the Emir is not allowed to speak in public. You could tell him anything you want. After you go down on the ground, you could call his mama. He cannot do anything about it because you're on the ground. You're already on the ground. So he cannot harm you there. Every time there is all, the Mansa in Mali sits on a 22-karat gold throne, but he's not allowed to wear gold. He cannot wear jewelry. He cannot wear anything made of gold, but he's the master of gold. He sets the price, he does this, he does that, he does everything about gold, but he cannot wear it. The society does not allow him to. So every time in Africa, we try to balance things. So justice is a key quality. The first thing that will show that you are not a Euro-Christian minded person is that you are very careful about being just in every dealing that you handle. That's step number one.
That is well received. Thank you, Ma Bello. So one little thing, would you say communism is not, it's because they,
please, let's not mix potatoes and apples.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Is there a place where we could donate to the school also?
Sister Blackwood?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. On the website. You could go to the website, the African Culture website.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Blackwood. And thank you, Ma Bello, for your answers.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Wajid.
For pulling the best out of us. Don't think we're great. It's what you're doing that pulls whatever comes out.
Okay.
Dr. Blackwood was fabulous. That's because of you here pulling the stuff out.
Absolutely. All right, let's see. We have a few more questions to get to. So Marlene, go ahead and ask your question, please.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Kwaba.
Okay, Kwaba. Professor Bello, before I ask my question, Cassandra, I wanted to scream to the screen and said, you are at the right place. You already there. You're getting it. This is it. Know when you have arrived. Know that. My question is for Dr. Blackwood. It's more about the presentation, which is an education, and how do we bring everything together for the Black child. I feel I'm in the education section. I feel like children are most, I want to use this word, abused, brainwashed, whatever, in the conventional setting of schools, public school, whether it's public or private. And now with the pandemic, I feel like this is like, it's like a breath of fresh air. Children get to stay home with their parents. Some of them, this is the first time they actually have a break to be themselves, and their parents gets to see who their children are, really. Do you think, my question is, do you think this new system of thing that seemed to be happening because of the pandemic, I'm not sure if it's gonna stay. Would you say this is a welcoming thing to maybe programs like yours can do even more good now in this environment?
I mean, that's a loaded question, but when you talk about, if you're referring to distance learning or
right.
or the time parents are spending with their children, the spending of time with the children is very important. And even after the pandemic, I would encourage the parents to spend time to get to know their children, making sure that we are also developing ourselves, so that we can first explain it to ourselves, so that we can be the teachers, and making sure that we are providing that explicit instructions for our for the students and for our children. So this situation provides opportunity, but within this process, we also have to be reflective because for me, the virtual space is not African, because I like that connection. I like that amongst my people and gathering the children, but we're using it as a tool. We are not letting this stopping us to prepare ourselves so that we can provide true education for our families and our children.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree. You know, it's just something that we have to use for now, but hey, listen, we are a people. We like to touch and sing and dance and rub, and yes, we can't do all that here. We're stuck.
Right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Marlene. Next question, we have Diana. Diana, go ahead, unmute, ask your question, please.
Sorry to bother again. I just did want to bring up one more thing, that I have a question for Dr. Blackwood. From a teaching that I was in with Franton, but Lan was doing, she brought up our history of being using music, astronomy, and geometry in our teachings. And I was wondering, with your school, do you interpret these as well, especially with the socialization of our children? I thought that was very profound, because music, astronomy, geometry was something that spoke to us, and the fact that, you know, our education system, which really doesn't, but is it incorporated with your schools?
Yes, so we do have at different levels of music and the creative aspect within in our school, because what we do, the children do not get a written test. They have to take the information that they're learning and put it in a creative way. And that is how we evaluate that they are mastering the content that they're teaching. So we go the entire year, and we have different step points where they are putting together what you more call a presentation, a performance, but they're actually taking that information to be able to share it in a creative way. The music and the astronomy and all of that, it's powerful because it helps with math. So we see where we are not explicitly teaching the content of reading or math, but we are seeing where our students are strong because they're getting this holistic education to make sure that they have a solid foundation.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Diana. Okay, we could go back to Yumi. Yumi has another question. Go ahead, Yumi, you can unmute.
Yeah. Last question, please. Is for Dr. Blackwood. Like, in your opinion, what do you think needs to happen, like in terms of like something that would be very like meaningful, that will unify, like I mean everyone, in terms of like Black people around the world, to like follow one code? And also, do you believe that everyone can really come together? Because as of right now, I feel that I've even had some conversation with like some of my peers, even in school, or my fellow friends, and I feel that some of them are too, like, I would say, like brainwashed. Do you think that the people that are already too brainwashed, we can bring them back to their natural self?
So your question is multiple parts, that is intertwined, but I would say you want to start with self. If you want unity, you got to start with self. You have to make sure that you are unifying yourself. and making sure that you are at a place where you can work with the collective. Because when we talk about Ubuntu, whatever we're interconnected. Whatever you do, it impacts the group as a collective. So I would say to go back to yourself, the starting point of self. And to the next level of your question, the Africans are very diverse people. We never sing the same song, do the same job, but we have this sense of oneness. We don't have to look the same way, dress the same way, have the same hairstyles and all of that. But at our core, we have certain values. The value system is what unify us to making sure that we stand firm as a people.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Yumi. All right, let's see. We have last two questions. All right, we got 4 minutes. So next question comes from Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald, go ahead. You can ask the question, please.
Yes, my second and last question. Pardon me if I'm going back to Haitian spirituality again. I'm going there because I'm asking a question about that because if I can understand that, then African spirituality would be just easy, like as cake. So my question is, right, there's like, this is for Bayyinah, because I know she's Haitian. There's these, there's a spirit in Haiti called Champwell. There's Tijan, right? There's Makonda, and there's something called like Limination, right? And there's like the Bizango, right? And there's like a lot of like there's Modong, right? And Zobo, all these spirits in Haiti, like all these laws in Haiti. Now, with these principles, because they said Champwell is like something that's evil, and Tijan is something that's evil. That's what a lot of Haitians say. My question is, what's the positive principle? What's a positive African principle in Tijan and in Champwell and in Makonda and them? I can't remember the rest.
Mm-hmm. First of all, you're not talking about spirit. You're talking about systems, okay? Systems of defense, of supervision of territory. You're talking about system like the Makonda as the system of defending people who are wrongly accused of or system wrongly taken. The Makonda system has a lot to do with liberating us from slavery. When you're talking about Champwell, you're talking about those whose duty it is to walk the territory night after night to make sure that we are not taken by surprise by anyone. So you are talking of all the system of protection of the country with the same way. I mean, it's the same you are Christian who slaughtered hundreds of millions of our people across the planet. When they came to us in Africa, they said we were wicked and evil, but we're so wicked and evil, and they get to kidnap hundreds of millions of our people, bring them to some other place, turn them into slaves, and we're the wicked ones? Okay, we have to just use, there's certain things you just have to use your logic to see the truth in it, okay? Voodoo is evil. Okay, fine. Voodoo is so evil, and yet it's the you Christians who've had the 30-year war, the 100-year war, the First World War, the Second World War, slaughtered millions and millions and millions on every continent. Isn't there something wrong with this thing? So we keep repeating things that our enemies put in our mouths. And every time we do this, we weaken ourselves. We weaken our people. Okay?
Yes.
So there are many, anything to me even if I don't know very much about Papua New Guinea. But once I read something that says, oh, there's an evil spirit in Papua New Guinea, the evil people, as soon as I see that, I say, oh, must be somebody defending their own territory or their own people.
Okay.
But I know nothing about Papua New Guinea. But I know enough about Haiti's history, about Africa's history, to know that anytime they're labeling somebody or some group or some system wicked, must be something they can't do what they want with.
Ah, okay, I see. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Fitzgerald. All right. It is 3 p.m. So we do have 2 more hands up in the chat. I know Dr. Blackwood, we have Dr. Blackwood until 3 p.m. But it's on her if she has like an extra couple of minutes, if she could share with the next, with these next 2 questions. What do you say, Dr. Blackwood? How about Professor Bello?
Yes, I agree. We'll take 5 more minutes and no more.
All right, so 5 more minutes. So that is 2 minutes each. All right, but 15 seconds for the question. So don't drag it out. Okay, next question from Cassandra.
Okay, my question is, why is so important to unify myself, and how can I do it?
Dr. Blackwood, you want to take it? Oh.
Oh,
Right.
sorry, my question was for you. Sorry.
For me?
Yes, for you, ma'am.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, Dr. Blood already explained it. If you yourself, all right, there is a, let's say that there is a Bombara saying, the people within the person are many in the person. Okay? The people within the person are many in the person. So there are many people inside you. So
okay,
if you are not aware of this, and you will find yourself saying, okay, how we can say this is true? Today, I can't stand Franz. Oh, Franz, you know, this man with a beard and a hat and all this, now, you know, it gets on my nerves. And then a week later, I say, hey, Franz is the best looking guy in the world. I have many different personalities within. So when I'm not aware of it, and I don't do anything to be aware, oh, okay. If I'm aware, I say, all right, I know why this Bayyinah always reacts that way. She is anti-people with hats or people with beard, okay? So then I need to do something within myself so I can understand the various Bayyinahs and not always be taking a decision based on Monday, I hate him, Tuesday, I love him, Wednesday, he's okay. We do this, but we're unaware. Yeah. So we need to unite within, become aware. Oh no, that's the angry Bayyinah. I'm not even gonna pay her no mind. She got angry and, you know, well, leave her alone. I know there's gonna be a better Bayyinah by tonight. She'll be in a better mood. She'll be in a different situation. She'll see things differently. That's why it's important to question, so we can handle our various personalities that lives within us. So if there are all these personalities here, and I'm not aware of it, each one taking a different decision, how can you deal with me? Because I myself can be very upset with Bayyinah, but except that I'm not gonna say, if I'm not aware of it, I'm not gonna know it's Bayyinah who's the problem. I'm gonna blame France. I'm gonna blame Marlene. I'm gonna blame Nima. I'm gonna blame everybody for the confusion that is created within myself. Okay? So as I get to know myself, I can handle myself better. I can bring a certain unity of behavior. I know when that Bayyinah that comes out, go calm yourself, girl. I send her away. I don't act on her decisions. I don't allow her to decide. Let's question this thing. Let's look at it some more. And when a wiser Bayyinah comes in, say, okay, I can take decisions on that. Now, if I'm aware that I'm like that, when I'm in front of you and you behave, you misbehave, you act up, I can deal with your acting up because I know I used to act, I have my act up moments too. So we can get along better if you know you and I know me. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't work at the unity within, we cannot have the unity without.
Beautiful. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Professor Bello. And yes, I am a witness to the many Professor Bayyinah Bellos. We spend many time, many days, many weeks together on tour. And yes, she is correct. There are many Professor Bellos. So, and thank you, Cassandra, again for your question. And you're on the right track. You're learning. I saw you flash that book up that you have up there. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I saw it.
Yes, indeed. So you're on the right track. So continue your journey, sister. You're on the right track. All right. Next question. Last question of the session. Once again, let's go back to Brooklyn to Wajit Osset Mel, and she's going to close out this Q&A session.
Yes, real quick. One last question for Dr. Blackwood. I wanted to know in your curriculum for the African Centered School, is there say a holistic health and wellness portion, say where even for small children where they're taught to focus on going within and to learn how to sort of think about their thoughts and meditate, and even with Reiki, because I'm a Reiki therapist, so that's something I'm just curious to know.
Yes, so that's a good question. So within the Ubuntu framework of how you structure learning, yes, that piece of starting with yourself to set the tone through yoga, through meditation, because that's how you get to know yourselves, observations. We have that embedded in there. We're intentional about doing that. So you can definitely reach out to me. My email is in the chat. Or you can find me on my website at ablackwood.com. You can find me there as well, and we can talk more about the whole framework and the structure of how that is designed.
Do you do workshops in New York? Do you come to New York? Real quick, that's it.
Yes, I do workshops anywhere, internationally, all over. I do, yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your time and Ma Bello's time and Francis' time and everybody. I appreciate y'all. Much love.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Alecia Blackwood. Why do
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure to do this, to be able to participate in the process of liberation education. And education is my passion. And so that I'm here to be able to support, to collaborate, to learn, and to continue to grow as we work towards freedom. We continue in the pursuit of freedom.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone. Remember, growth is forever. Once you stop growing, you're dead. Once you stop learning, you're dead. So we have to continually work at knowing better and more. Better first, more after. And then transmitting is a duty. What we know, we can transmit. Take good care, be blessed. Ancestral blessings to all. Do your very best. Remember, the divine lives in you.
Shay.
There is nothing you want to do that you cannot do. Think it, then work hard, sweat, make it happen.
Shay.
Ashe, ashe. Thank you.
Ashe Madasipa. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Blackwood. You did a great job. Appreciate having you today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for another session of Bayyinah and Friends. And we will see you next Thursday. So have a great weekend, everyone. Peace and blessings. Love.
Peace and blessing.
Peace and blessings to everyone.
My fellow.
Love, love, love.
Love, love, love.
Good care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Be blessed.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.